Let's talk about your business, strategy, and the juicy details of what actually works, from mainstream fashion to fashion on Main Street and the entire ecosystem behind it. How do we scale your company and do it with the balance and the happiness that we all seek? Let's hear from those insiders, experts, and strategists that actually make it happen. I'm your host, Ashley Alderson from the Boutique Hub, and I can't wait to chat. Hey guys, welcome back. We have a life update podcast today. I'm trying to remember the last time I got to talk to you on the podcast that you were on. I think you still had the bus.
Yeah, and you didn't have video yet. You were still just all audio.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that funny how life changes? Look at us. Like it's just glow up 2.0 right now.
Exactly.
Well, we have so much to dig into today. So let's start with the life update. The last time I talked to you, you were single, you were dating Blake.
Yeah.
I don't even think you were engaged yet, and you had the bus. So much has changed since then. Give me like a business update. How are things going?
It's been great. The last time we talked and I was on the podcast, we were in a very small office. It was the very first office that we had in Auburn. And since then we went and had, this was like pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So it was like, in 2019, we went and did like a whole pop-up in our mall. Realized I did not like being in a mall at all. Yeah. Hours were too long. There's too many different people. Not happening. So the people that are in a mall, I'm like, all power to you. There's no way. And then we had our second storefront, which was in Opelika. And then I got engaged. And then we got married. It's so funny because everybody thinks that like Blake and I had a honeymoon baby because we got married in May of 2022. And then I was pregnant May of, no. I ended up actually being pregnant in Vegas at Magic in August. Had no idea. Never go out and party when we're in Vegas at Magic. The one time I went out, hung out with friends, drinking, having a blast, was exhausted the last day of Magic. And I was like, oh my gosh, did I take like, instead of my Adderall, did I actually accidentally take like an Ambien? So I'm like chugging Red Bulls. I had 2 Red Bulls, coffee, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. I get back, I was pregnant, had no idea. So was pregnant in August. So everybody's like, oh my gosh, like y'all didn't wait me time. I was like, well, Blake and I have been together for 10 years. So it was time. So I had my daughter Sophia in April of this year. So running the boutique pregnant was very, very different, and we can get into that for sure. But yeah, no, everything's going good. I've started a couple of other businesses ever since then, kind of dabbled into a little bit of everything and just trying to juggle mom, boss, and wife life now.
I love it. Let's start there. I want to dig into that first. All the business things will come to, but I think so often I get to talk to boutique owners who maybe came into the business already having a family or like their life was somewhat established, but you started when you were single. So I just want to talk about like, what were your expectations? What did you think it was going to be like? Maybe misconceptions you had about running a business, being pregnant, having your first child versus what was your reality?
So in 2017, when we started, I obviously was 22 years old, and that was hustle culture. That was like, you wake up, you work, you eat, you doing photo shoots, you're having like all the fun. Everything was fun until probably up to the point of where like it was no longer like a hobby. It started to be bills and employees and everything. And that still was a lot of fun because I was like, I've got employees, I've got this, I've got that. And then it started to hit that was like, okay, like this is actually like an income. This is like paying bills. This is what we're doing. So I was good. And then when I got married, it was one of those that I was like, okay, I've got to take this in. I need to like focus on my marriage. Like this is like, there's a wedding. I need to relax on my honeymoon. I was still working on my honeymoon. Like it was hard because it was like, I didn't get the traditional, like you go to the honeymoon, you turn your phone off, you don't talk to anybody. Like I was still working. So it was a little bit harder. And then once I got pregnant, I was like, oh, I can still hustle. I can do. No, when you get pregnant, I just did not know how hard it was to be pregnant. And not even a sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm so big, I can't go around. No, it's like your mental changes like crazy. And I had no idea. So my motivation was like,
Mhm.
just everything. It was one of those that I was like, "Oh, I don't care. I'm tired. I'm exhausted." So I'm thankful for my team that was still showing up every day, because there were days I was like, I'm gonna nap right here under my desk for just like 20 minutes and then wake me up. Like it was hard because the creativity was like leaving, like nothing. I was just kind of like, what are we doing? And of course, that probably is not like what you want to do as a recession is starting. Is to like just lose all. So I told mom, I was like, I really wish I would have tried to focus right as my pregnancy was like ending, to be like, okay, we don't need to buy all of this stuff. This is not working, but I was just trying to like push out stuff every single day. And it wasn't working. So now that I've kind of like restricted back from that, we've had my daughter. She is 7 months old now, which I'm like, where does the time go? Like time
Just
moves
like a
so
lobster.
much faster.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at your post the other day of your three, and I was like, they're teenagers. I was
I,
like, they
yeah.
look grown. And I was like, I remember when Ashley was posting them and they were like so like little. And I was like, well, I guess it has been 7 years. So I guess but I mean, it's just hard to think like I started this 7 years ago. So like the change of it has been like so weird and so hard. So now, like I told you, I'm trying to transition a little bit. We still have the boutique, we're still doing it, but I'm trying to have other forms of income come in, so that way I'm not like, this has to work, and if it doesn't work, I don't know what I'm going to do. Instead of
Yeah.
like putting all my eggs in a basket, I've tried to like kind of dabble in a lot of different things that I've liked, whether it's been like social media marketing and helping others like with their
Yeah.
social media where they don't know exactly like, how are you uploading products to Shopify, or how are you building this website? Like I'm able to do that, or even just like help with their social media management. I've dabbled in that. I've loved that. I've started doing wholesale and started like a t-shirt company, which we call 26 Threads, which is people like, where did 26 come from? I was like, well, my daughter was born on the 26th. So we were trying to think of something that wasn't necessarily related to Tiny Closet. Like I didn't want to be like Tiny Threads or anything. I was like, this way nobody is like, is it for tiny people? Is it tiny clothes? I'm like, no, it's not. So nobody could say like, unless they're like, is this for 26-year-olds? Like I don't know what they could possibly come up with, but they will. So a lot of different things. A lot of has changed in what, 6, 7 years of trying to do it all. So I've slowed
Awesome.
down a little bit just because I need to spend time with my daughter, but the hustle's still there. It's just not as like, I'm eating more than just energy drinks now.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, and this has been my experience too. Is there's just seasons.
Yeah.
There's just so many different seasons of life and different seasons of business. And the beautiful thing is there's so many different ways to do this business. It's
Right.
not one size fits all. Like you said, you thought like, oh, I just have to just the boutique. Like I'm just relying on
Yeah.
what I'm selling through the boutique. There's so much more than that.
Right.
I really want to dig into all that, but I have to ask you one more, Sophia, question, because you talk about the pregnancy being hard, but
Yeah.
talk to me about then bringing her home and how you adjusted just your life.
Yeah.
Because first child's hard.
Yeah.
Second child is easier. Third child's a breeze. I'm just here to tell you this. Like those babies out, Taylor. But how did you adjust? Like what new systems or processes did you have to put in place?
Right.
Or how did you like change your schedule or like strategic operations? How did that
Right.
shift? And then we'll talk about those other businesses after that.
So when she first came home, it was kind of a little bit easier because she just slept. Like she'd wake
Yeah.
up, she'd eat, she'd sleep. So
Yeah.
we'd be laying in bed because it was nice because Blake actually got paternity leave from the hospital. So he was actually
Amazing.
out for like a month with me. So I was like, yes. So we really just kind of laid in bed for a month and like would try to like clean, because even like after having a baby, your body and mind are just so like, I mean, your hormones are everywhere. You don't know what's going on. Like that was a really big change to me, was to be like, wow, I didn't know that there was a such thing. Like they talk about like, like you cry when you're pregnant and everything. I was like, yeah, but I didn't know that there was like, really hard postpartum depression and anxiety. Like there were just times of intrusive thoughts. I mean, nobody talks about that kind of stuff. And I was like, what is this? I thought like all of that went away when the baby. No. So trying to adjust like my mind to say like, no, like you can do this. And then trying to be like, I'm going to be a good mom. But I really have had a ton of support. Like Blake has been incredible. But it was nice because when he was here, like I would sit there on the computer. He's the type that he's like, I'll get up and I'll feed her and I change her. I'm like, perfect. Like, he's not afraid to change her, feed her, bathe her, whatever. So I'm like, okay, cool. So being able to, like, I could lay in bed and sit there and do new arrivals. The girls would actually, that were working for me, they would like shoot photos and I'd go get the SIM card, I'd edit, they'd do try-ons for me. So they were kind of running it for a good amount of time of it until I came back, and then we started kind of changing things around because we were dropping things like daily, and that is so hard.
Yeah.
That's a lot of inventory, that's a lot of money, that's a lot of time. And like, I was still sitting there being the one to edit everything, to post everything, like also trying to have a newborn baby, waking up every 2 hours. So my sleep was like gone.
Yeah.
So we started changing once I got back fully to the store. So it's probably about like a month and a half that I actually ended up going back every day. Because when Blake went back to work, I started going back to work. So when I started doing that, it got easier because the girls really loved Sophia. Like, they've all been around babies, so that they would like, oh, I'll hold her, I'll feed her. I'm like, cool, love that. But then it started getting to a point where she was no longer comfortable at the office. So I was like, okay, I've got to make a change to where my daughter is now comfortable. It's no longer about me. It's no longer about like what I need. It's what she needs. So we actually ended up moving all of our inventory to the storefront that we opened in downtown Auburn. And then we moved all the shipping home, which has been like, in my head, the thing is, like, my house isn't small, but it's an older home, so the rooms are smaller.
Yeah.
Like they were back in the day. So there is just like boxes everywhere. And I love my husband because he's literally like, so there's 10 boxes in the doorway. What are we doing? Because running a boutique and bringing inventory in and then having t-shirts come in with boxes and boxes, and they come in every day.
Yeah.
So thank God that Blake is so patient. But everything did change, and so now I like where everything is now and how everything's going, because like it's starting more of like people buying more now, being able to, I can actually get back into doing it rather than being like, okay, so I had a baby and now we're going to change and move everything.
Yeah. So much of that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's been one of those too that I've had to talk to Blake and be like, I have to be okay with change. Like, everything is changing. Like, we're transferring. I mean, I'm really excited about 2024 because there is going to be a shift, but it's like one of those that it's like it's personal life and it's business life. Like, everything's shifting with the boutique world and just trying new things. And then like my brother's moving and I've never been away from him. Like, we've always lived in the same town, if not like 5 minutes from each other. So now he's moving to Nashville, which is 5 hours for me. And I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. We've got this. So it's been a lot of change, but it's been a lot of good change, hopefully.
One of my favorite things that we do throughout the year at the Boutique Hub is getting together in person and networking and sharing wins, but also learning from some of the best experts in our industry and some of the best boutique owners in our industry. And that's what we do at the Boutique Summit. I hope you have saved the date June 9th and 10th in Dallas, Texas for the Boutique Summit. It is our industry's biggest gathering of the year. This year we have over 30 speakers led by some amazing keynotes, including the best leadership speaker and author. You guys, I'm giddy with excitement. It's Jon Acuff. Please read his books or look him up if you have not already. Also, my friend Dominique Broadway digging into the finances. Lynn Graff talking about really mastering your brand and your story, more crucial now than ever. And of course, I'll be dropping a few keynotes as well. You guys, this year the theme is the Rising Phoenix, and it couldn't be more timely for our industry. So I hope to see you there. Snag a ticket, save the date, June 9th and 10th, 2024 in Dallas, Texas. So I'm sure through that change, though, one thing you've learned is how not to be the bottleneck of all of it. And something that I know the first time you and I were on the podcast, we talked a lot about your social media, building a personal brand, being a really recognizable face. But when you go through pregnancy and then being home for a month with a baby, that changes. You've had to introduce additional models. And getting additional people just into the processes. What did that look like? How did your customers accept like new faces and you building a brand more than just it being about you?
Well, I knew whenever I was because what we used to do was anytime there was like a bigger collection, so like if we dropped like Valentine's Day, like there was going to be me and two other girls. Otherwise, daily arrivals were always me.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind it. I mean, it still drove me crazy to have to get ready every other day and put makeup on. But it was easy because my customers knew like Gracie and they knew Mackenzie and they knew Casey and they knew me. So they knew like a majority of it. So once I got to a point that I was no longer able to fit in the clothes without looking incredibly pregnant, or I just really couldn't fit in anything, I was able to still have like Gracie and Mackenzie and Casey shoot. But for try on videos, I would be right there next to them being like, oh my gosh, you guys, you have to see this. Like we
Yeah.
talked with each other because that's what I've got a friend that she's pregnant now and she's a boutique owner and she was telling me like, I don't got to figure out what to do in the spring when I'm really pregnant. And I was like, do a baby shower collection. Still be in there because when we did our
Yeah.
baby shower collection, like it sold so well
Yeah.
because I was pregnant and I could really show you what a bump looked like in said clothes and I could model in them and then also
Yeah.
have clothes like if you want to go to a baby shower. So I was like, this is gonna work. So it did, but of course, after I had Sophia and tried to do like a baby shower part two at anybody to model, and it didn't work out as well because I wasn't pregnant. So I was like, but it was nice because everybody knows Gracie because a lot is funny because a lot of my customers I think that she's a lot taller than she is. So Gracie is 5'2". And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, what does this look like on a short girl? I'm like, well, Gracie's 5'2". So this is what it's going to look like. So it's funny that a lot of people could relate to like me and my size, like when I was pregnant, because I have people that are like, hey, can this
Yeah.
work for a bump? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Or I'll be like, no, or like, how far along? So I'm able to kind of interact with them. And then
Yeah.
Gracie's able to be like, yeah, so this is going to be for my short girls. And then Casey was more of our like size medium, large to extra large. So she was like, yes, I can do this one. No, I could go up in this. So it was nice to kind of have a mixture of everybody. So people really enjoyed it, which is nice. But they always bought off of me, which is hard because when I was pregnant, I was like, this works. And then nobody's ever going to like do it like you are. They're not going to ever take the photos like you are or like model or interact. So you're kind of like, okay, how do we make this better? Like, how do we? So I was really happy and grateful for the team that I had when I was pregnant because it was like I got married, I was planning a wedding, got married, went on a honeymoon, ended up being pregnant, and they were still there. And it was like we still ran as a team.
Yeah.
So now everything is a little bit different because now I'm like, okay, so how do I now show this team how to manufacture and help me with wholesale? So it's like everybody's changing. And that's what some of my girls, they're like, I hate change. I'm like, well, you're gonna have to love it because this is what I was like, I can't stay still. I
Yeah.
was like, you have to adapt, otherwise you're literally going to stay still in this industry. I was like,
Yeah.
if you don't adapt, it's not gonna work.
You know, you're so right. That's exactly where this industry is at right now. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had that conversation with so many boutique owners, even members of our own team. Like, hey, if
Yeah.
you don't like change, working for a small business or
Yeah.
owning a small business, it's not a good idea for you
Yeah.
because the only thing certain is uncertainty and change when you own a
Right.
small business.
It is
So
when they literally tell you it's a roller coaster, like it is in fact a roller coaster.
it is. And that
100%.
it can be so good. There's so many blessings with that.
Right.
But you can't let the change or like the downtimes, you can't let those crush you because
Right.
they're inevitable. They're always going to
Right.
be there. They're going to come. You're going to face
Right.
uncertainty and you're going to face hard times, but you have to know how to push through it. So, how did you just start to make this decision of like, okay, I don't have to just do the boutique. I can do multiple different things. I can have
Right.
multiple revenue streams. How did you start to lean into that? What was your first step?
Well, honestly, it's been super helpful because I always see Jeremy and Susie from Nanomax, and they
Yeah.
have been literally, and I'll always shout them out. I was like, they have been like the best. Like, they're such good friends, but they're such good mentors too.
Yeah.
We
They're
always go
incredible.
to dinner when we go to market or anything, and so Jeremy's always like, "So, what's your next venture that you're gonna do?" And I'm like, "Do I need one? Like, what do you do?" So they've always been super helpful to be like, "So, like, this could be a really good idea." Like, so they really kind of showed me like, this does not have to be the only thing that you do. There
Yeah.
needs to be other forms of revenue coming in because if tomorrow this crashed and burned, what you doing? So it really started making me think like, so what can I do to one, to make me happy that it's not going to drive me crazy. It still makes sense for me to do and that I'm good at. So it's always been like, I've sold like real ideas because there's a lot of things that people will pay for. And obviously education is one of them. The hub has always been like, everybody's like, how do I find this? I'm like, literally just go to the hub. Like there's so many resources there, like that, go there. I was like, but if you have a very specific question, I was like, I can answer them for you. I was like, or if you need me to deep dive into your social media, I was like, I can do that for you. I was like, but if you need to have like a wide range of questions, like I'm just going to give you this website and it's $24 a month. Here you go. Like, there you go. So, but it's like I've been able to like help people like with their social medias, explain to people. Like I've had a couple phone calls with people just to ask me questions of like, okay, so like what's market like? Because people don't know like very specific things that like we know. So like I had a phone call with one girl and she literally, we stayed on the phone for an hour and she just asked me questions that were like, so when I go to market, like, how does it work? Like, do I give them a credit card? Do I pay right then? Like, they have no idea. And I'm like, oh, I can sell
Yeah.
that information all day, every day. Like that's no secret sauce. Like that's just something like when I first started, I had no idea what market was like no idea how it worked. So be able to do that. And then like people can also buy services from me that's like, do you want me to go to market with you and explain it to you? So I've like done that with people too. So it's been nice because I've done that and then like tried to stay creative and do things and like sell content or help people with their content,
Yeah.
give them ideas, one-on-one talks. Like it's been nice because I can still explain it and talk about it all day. I just don't have to do it.
Yeah.
So that's been nice. And then doing the 26 threads and being creative with it and getting to design things and go back and forth with people and give ideas, like that's been nice too. Because I'm not having to sell like a huge volume of things to like multiple people. It's just one really big order. And I'm like, and my day is done. Cool. Made that quota. Love that. So it's been like very different of a lot of things, but it's a lot of things that I've always wanted to dabble in. But I thought that I just had to be in the boutique because I thought like that's where I make money. Like that's it. And then I
Yeah.
realized I was like, oh, I need other ventures. Need to do other things because if this whole thing crashed and burned, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
So it was one of those, it was like a sink or swim, like we gotta figure this out.
You know, what's interesting about that is I think it's really easy for people to get their identity completely wrapped up and locked on one thing and
Yeah.
then start to panic and think, okay, without this thing, who am I? I've
Yeah.
even had that with the hub, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
okay, without the hub, who am I? And what do I
Yeah.
do? So I love this because you're diversifying it
Hmm.
and your eggs are not all in one basket and your identity is
Right.
not locked in one place.
Right.
But I think for you, what's probably made that an easy transition for you is you've always done a great job of building a personal brand.
Hmm.
Like you built who you are with the character traits that you have and just being real and authentic. And then all these other things have been kind of like a mesh of that.
Right.
So if someone's listening and they're like, Taylor, how do I build a personal brand? What does that even mean? Where do I
Yeah.
start? What does that look
Yeah.
like?
Well, I've always told people, I was like, you just gotta post. Like, there's times that, and I think Carly and I from Everyday Chic Boutique, we kind of talked about this at Magic. She was like, you really like know like your personal brand. And I was like, Carly, I literally just post whatever. Like, that is literally, it may look strategic. It's not. In no way is it. But in a way, to me, it almost feels like a therapy. Like, I will
Yeah.
literally record something, post it on stories, just because I'm like, I just want to talk. Like, I just need to say this to somebody. And I
Yeah.
have probably said the most outlandish, like random things to my husband that he's probably like, okay. So for me to have somebody else that maybe if they hear it, they're like, oh my God, I did the exact same thing. Like it's nice. So
Yeah.
then that's what mom and the baby just walked in. But they it's been nice because whenever I did have Sophia, it was one of those that I could then get like recommendations of baby products. I could get all of these things and it was easier to kind of transition from being like just the boutique owner. So now I'm a mom and I can like post baby stuff, but I can also post content and post business stuff. So it's been nice. It's really important. And I've told people this to have a personal brand because I give the example Tori from Pink Lily. She is the influencer of Pink Lily. She's the CEO, but
Yeah.
like she's kind of like she's an influencer because when she posts like gift guides, they're Pink Lily. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that to me, I've always told people that. I was like, if you do not have a personal brand with your I mean, that's just another place for more eyes to see it and it look
Yeah.
a little bit more genuine and it kind of gives a little bit more credibility. Like, oh, the owner's posting this. So like she knows her stuff. So I'm like, I think it's super important. It doesn't have to be strategic. A lot of times people are just like, oh, this is really raw and real. And I follow a lot of influencers. And I think that that's something that's kind of important that I've seen a lot of people talk, even in the hub, that some influencers are getting a little bit too like, what is it, QVC? Like it
Yeah.
looks a little too like, hey, you're trying to sell me something. But then like if
Mhm.
you share like your day in the life and you share just like what you're doing and you kind of like throw in a little product, like it looks more genuine. So then people are like, oh, okay, this is her personal brand, not the store that's trying to sell me. She's just showing me that she literally uses this all day, every day.
Yeah.
So I love it. And I also feel like I just kind of post random things like on my personal page, which is nice because then people kind of see too, like, okay, so Taylor's talking about the tiny closet, but she's also talking about like, the chipmunks that are digging holes in her yard. Like it's a little bit of it all. So
Yeah.
I really think it's important to have a personal brand than to just be like, yeah, because when people come up to me, they're like, oh, you're the tiny Tay. I'm like, yes, you know me from that. But when people come up to me, they're like, you're the tiny closet. I'm like, yes, kind of. That is my business, yes, but I don't want to just be identified as like the tiny closet. I'm like, uh-huh,
Yes.
Taylor. Nice to
Yes.
meet you. So it's like a blessing and a curse at times too.
The cool part, and I think Jenna Kutcher talks about this, I think she calls it her Fab Five,
Hmm.
is everyone's Fab Five is a little bit different. Like it's the five different things. So you might be talking about marriage, baby, chipmunks, being a business owner and social
Yeah,
media, right? And fashion. So it's
yeah.
five different things. Everyone's is I just think that's what makes Instagram so cool is I would talk about horses and rodeo. Like,
And
does
I
that really
love,
relate to anybody?
no, I can't relate to it, but I love hearing it because I'm like, actually, post more about the NFR because I don't know what that is. And I need to know, like, I love seeing you post about like horses and everything because I'm like, I'll never have that. But like, it's so
Yeah.
fun to see because I'm like, so what does that mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, what,
Yeah.
like, I'm like, so what kind of trailer is that you're putting the, like, I don't know, but I think it's so interesting. Like,
I feel that
it's such a
about
different world.
I feel like that when you post about like even pageant stuff.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like, oh my God, show
that's
me
new
all of your
again too.
pictures. Yeah. But
Yeah,
we all
that's
are
new.
our worst enemy, right? We're our worst
Hmm.
enemy in telling ourselves like no one really cares about that. No one really
Yeah.
wants to see that. No one wants to see what you ate for lunch. Yes, they do.
And it's crazy that people like it's almost like they want to hyperfixate on people because I do it all the time too. Like I'll sit there and I'll watch somebody and I'll watch them clean and I'm like, "Oh, that's a new way to do it." Like so it's so different because it's like and I think too that sometimes when I do post about pageant stuff that I'm like because I decided God for some reason decided to put me back in them because I swore them off
Yeah.
like in 2018. I was like, I'm never doing this again. It's not happening. And then one day it was like, you know what? I kind of miss this and I think I'm going to get back into it. And Mom was like, what? What are you doing? What are we doing? And I was like, so Mom, I'm going to start more businesses. I'm going to be in a pageant and we're going to do this. And she was like, okay. But I was telling her, I almost feel like it's a new, like for 7 years, I was in boutique world and I'm
Yeah.
still in boutique world, but like, there's more avenues like we talked about like there's more places to do and more things to like you don't have to be stuck just in the boutique world like it's a
Yeah.
fun world and it's exciting but like sometimes you gotta branch out and like you're still in it but it's not like you're hyper fixated on this like you can do other things too so that's what like so now we're back in a Mrs. pageant we're starting businesses we're having baby it's just all of it and I was like here we go
It's the spice of life. I love it.
you, you
I
can't be bored
You can't be bored. I think your point though, like if I'm going to sum it up into a sentence,
yeah
it's going to be um you just can't overthink it.
Yeah, you just kind of got to jump,
You just gotta jump. And whatever
see what
makes you
happens.
happy and whatever happens with your life, if you race snowmobiles, whatever it is, post it,
Right.
share it.
Yeah. I know. That's what like I tell people too. Like they're like, how do I get like on more views and everything. I'm like, literally just say good morning. I was like, people may not interact with you, or people may not do something. Like, I had one girl, we got on a phone call, and I was like, you're not on stories. I was like, I was like, I don't even know who the owner is here. I was like, you have a bunch of models, and is this you? And she's like, yeah, that's me. I'm like, get on there and say good morning. She got on there and said good morning, told them what her to do was. She sends me a
Oh,
screenshot, and 15 people had liked her story. She's like, we never get likes on stories. And I'm like,
oh,
ta-da! Even if it was just one or two, I was like, you see that people enjoy seeing you and hearing you. I
yeah.
was like, post it. I was like, and some people I know that are very like, I don't want to share my whole life. I don't share my whole life. It looks like it, but I don't. I was like, it's like a very small percentage of it, like very small percentage, but it works.
So good. How do you, so when you're thinking now about this new future and all these different ventures and a pageant, all the things you're adding in, how do you keep it all straight? How do you, because I think sometimes when we get hyper fixated on things, we're like, okay, I'm all in on the pageant. And then these other
Yeah.
things kind of fall by the wayside. How do you make sure all of your children are fed?
So I have got three different planners and they're all like there. And then I'm like one of those people, like when I write something down, I've got notepads and notebooks and planners, and then I also like will write it on a random scratch piece of paper, and like there's like it's written everywhere. So that way I'm like, I've got to focus on this. I've got to focus. I'm also on like medication, like I'm on Adderall, so that way I'm like focused. Because like whenever I was on right, it was of course right before I got pregnant. I ended up getting back on Adderall because I had not been on it for like since the sixth grade. Like I was on it all through college, stopped because I was like, I'm not ADD. I'm fine. Yeah, I am. I'm ADD because I went and like talked to a therapist and I was talking to her. I was like, do I need to get like on antidepressants? And she was like, I think you may be ADD and OCD. I think maybe you need to talk to your doctor. And they were like, yeah. So when I got on it, I was like, I have got this. Everything is like figured out and got pregnant. And I was like, and now we're off of it. So when I got back on it, now I'm able to like focus on everything and I write everything out. I take time, like I get up in the morning and I'm like, okay, so this is what needs to be done today. I can
Yeah.
schedule because I remember one time, I think it was like either at the summit you talked about it that you were like on Mondays, that's when everything needs to be planned out for the rest of the week. So I have done that from the beginning. Like I write everything down, I plan it all out. Like I could be on my couch watching Miss Rachel with my child and we're sitting there and I'm like planning everything out and I'm like, here we go. And then just listening to Miss Rachel like bubble come in the like just sitting there singing as I'm doing it. But like I plan everything out and I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do. And a lot of times people like when they do talk to me, they're like, so how do you come up with content ideas? I'm like, they're everywhere. I'm like, get on TikTok and just scroll for a second. I was like, take that content idea, make it your own. I was like, it's not hard. I was like, just do what you want to do. And I was like, and if it works, it works. So when I
Yeah.
plan it out, everything helps. And then also my husband being like, so did you do this today? I'm like, no. But I also like give myself grace because there is times that I feel like I'm like, I didn't focus on this enough today. So tomorrow I really need to make sure I do because I
Yeah.
am only one person. But also outsourcing and being like, hey, like I need you to do this. Like when I have Gracie do certain things, I'm like, hey, like I need you to do this so that way I can focus on this. She's like, okay, I can do that. Like I still like I try not to micromanage because again, like nobody's gonna do exactly what you do. Nobody's gonna love your baby as much as you do. And so whenever I'm like, okay, I have to be okay with her doing this and it not being like 110%, but at least like 90%. So giving myself grace, planning it all out, knowing that like it's not going to all get done and it's not all going to be perfect, but like you said, sometimes it doesn't have to be perfect and you just need to do it.
Done
It
is
doesn't
better
don't
than
overthink it, just do it.
absolutely. Done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
What's been the best? I think of like mistakes, not as mistakes, but like happy opportunities sometimes.
Yeah.
What's been the best mistake you've ever made in your business?
Um Probably opening storefronts. Like it was like a good it was a okay. So when we opened the storefront in Opelika, so Opelika in Auburn, they call it Auburn Opelika, and Auburn is like where you want to be. Like it is like the college students. It is where everybody is. Like that's where the money is. But whenever we first needed a storefront, we could not afford Auburn. So when we moved to Opelika, which is 20 minutes out, it was much cheaper. So we opened a storefront there and we scaled there, which was nice. But the storefront was like, I hated the storefront. Like there was no traffic in it, but it was there. Like
Yeah.
it was nothing. Like we really didn't put a bunch of money into it. We kind of were like, here's our what was it called? Like our outlet. Like here, like we really didn't focus on it. So it was like a good happy mistake because we were able to open it. We got some customers from it, but like the warehouse was in the back of it and we were able to scale. So now we know what works in a brick and mortar and what doesn't. So now that we have our new one, it actually makes a great amount of money because we now be like, okay, we need like more light here, but we didn't want to update it there because we knew we weren't going to be there. So like now, like the storefront is fun. It's like bright. It's like got custom wallpaper. It's got fun music. So it was a good mistake that we did go to Opelika, but I'm glad that we're in Auburn now
Perfect.
because I'm like Opelika it's such a beautiful like historic downtown,
Yeah.
but not our customer at all. But it
Yeah.
worked for what it did.
So good. All the lessons, right? If you're not,
Yeah.
Sarah Brooks says this all the time. If you're not winning, you're learning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's never a loss. Like the same thing we do. We say that in pageants too. Like if it's not a win, then it's a lesson. It's a
Yeah,
learning opportunity. So we say this. It all goes hand in hand.
absolutely. What do you think is your best advice for people in 2024? How are you looking at 2024?
In what part? So like that's what because some people because a girl when we've talked one-on-one with some girls like they've asked me like do you think that opening a boutique in 2024 like should I do it? And I'm like yeah. I'm like is the industry oversaturated? Yes, it absolutely is. There's so many like boutiques on TikTok now and like it's crazy to see people on TikTok shops because they're all of a sudden like I've sold 500 of these and they have and I'm like but you've been in business for 42 hours and you sold like instantly like this. I'm like, but you're not going to understand the momentum that you have to keep going because you're not going to sell 500 each in every time of something ever. I don't know if I've ever sold 500 of one thing ever. So I've told people, I was like, you have to kind of like slow and steady. You have to be patient when it comes to those because that's not realistic. Nothing, in my opinion, on TikTok is realistic. Nothing. The
No,
views, the shopping, none of it is realistic. And that's what I think is
anticipated.
hard and people are seeing. And I've also told people, I was like, it is, I said, and the reason that you may be seeing, and this is just my opinion, you may be seeing people that are like struggling right now, or they're like, oh, it's really hard for small businesses. But that's because in 2020, 2021, and 2022, business was like, I mean, it was growth, but it wasn't realistic either. Like it was not like how people really shop. There was different incomes coming in, there was checks coming in. I
Yeah.
was like, so now it's a little bit more realistic, but like even us, like we were growing so much that we were buying so much more inventory than we ever had. We were hiring way more people, but now that it's kind of that high has come down, it's all realistic. I said, but if you don't have any overhead and it's you in your room, you may be perfectly fine making the money. I said, there's never a good time to start a business ever. I was like, so I mean, like, you just kind of you gotta jump. So my advice for
Mm.
people is like take those risks. If there's something that's not working, you need to adapt to it. I've talked to other people too that they were solely just in their boutiques and they were
Yeah.
like, Taylor, like I don't know how to pay rent. And I'm like, what else do you like to do? And they're like, I mean, I like tea shops. Like I've always like wanted to open a tea shop. I'm like, then open a tea shop in your boutique. I was like, have that be a part of it. And I was like, or if you want to do like styling and everything, I was like, do that. I was like, have another form of income because like you've seen, this industry does this, but if like the industry's doing this, but your other income's doing this, they'll even out eventually. So that's
Yeah.
why like we've started doing so many other things. So another big advice is like jump and do the things that you want to do and make sure that if it makes you money, we need to feed that baby. So if one's making money, keep going. Still give the child food over here, but like make sure that we're feeding equally so that way they all even out if one's doing better than the other.
Yeah. When it zigs, you zag.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
opportunity.
You have to.
So good. Taylor, this has been awesome. So good. I feel like time's flown by and I feel like I have a page of mental notes. I'm sure everyone listening has a page of notes, fresh ideas. So I have to ask you this though, last question, because
Okay.
life is so different than the last time I asked you this question. So now fast forward, 30 years down the road, and you're sitting on the front porch and you've got Blake, and you probably have multiple kids by this point. I don't know. Everyone's probably asking you that question, right? So you're looking back and you've got grandkids and you're
Yeah.
talking about this life that you lived and all these businesses and opportunities you created. What's the thing you want them to remember the most?
Oh, that makes me like want to cry. Like think about like, oh my God, when I have grandkids and I'm sitting on the porch and just looking at them, I just want them to remember like life is not easy and it never
Yeah.
has been. It's never been easy and like you have to work hard. I think there's so many people now that think that they're almost in a way like entitled and they're like, I should be making this much money. I'm working just as hard. But you have to put in the work. And I want my grandkids one day to understand that like it's not going to come easy to you. Even if you are like given a silver spoon and things, like you still have to work hard. And I always want people to like look at me and my businesses and be like, she works really hard. Like she wasn't given that. And there's like even some things that like within my business that I'm like, I really could use a DTG machine, but it's $11,000. So what I could do is sit there and go get a loan and do this and this, or I know it's going to make me feel better when I earn that money and I'm able to like completely pay it off. And I know for a fact that like I did that. Nobody else did it for me. So
Yeah.
working hard and knowing that you did that feels so much better than it being given to you, even if it takes you years. Like knowing like what I've done now with the tiny closet, it's one of those that I'm like, I did that and nobody can take away for how hard I've worked. So I really hope that people see like, no, she works really hard. Like she does not like, we're not just fiddling around here. Like she works really, really hard. So that's what I hope they see one day and they're not like, you had it so easy back then.
I love
So
it. So good.
I hope that they see that.
I know they will see that. I know they will see that. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for the light that you are and always being just such an awesome part of our community. And the way that you give to others is just really remarkable and genuine. So thank you for being here and sharing again
Oh
today.
no, thank you so much. When I saw that it was like, hey, we'd love to have you on there, I'm like, oh, it's been a minute and they still like me. I'm still relevant in the boutique world. Perfect. I will be there with bells on. So I was so excited to be able to get back onto the Hubs podcast.
Oh, well, you crushed it. Nice work.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope that you loved it. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a rating and review down below for a chance to be one of our featured listeners each and every week. For more information on our spirit of community over competition and how to access complete show notes and bonus downloads from our guests, head on over to theboutiquehub.com and join the community. We'll see you next week.